would stop me out in the street, and they would ask me, are you a U.S. citizen? And my answer would be yes, and that was enough. Today, that's not the case. So what would you say, what do you suggest I tell my citizens back home? Have a passport with you all the time?
No, I would tell your citizens to be grateful they live in this country where President Trump is upholding
We are,
the law.
but ma'am, if you're stopped as a U.S. citizen out in the street and you tell people the U.S. citizen and you're still held,
return back to their
that is not the country we're supposed to live in.
Voluntarily help them self-deport if they would like to.
These are American citizens, ma'am. Do I tell my children to carry a U.S. passport?
No, I would not say they would have to.
But they're stopped, and sometimes they take those passports, your agents throw them out, and they grab them anyway. You're terrorizing American citizens. Let's turn to another one. Okay, databases. One of your ICE officers in Maine recently told an observer that they're creating a database. Are you creating a database, ma'am?
No, we're not creating a database.
Let's watch a video here.
To record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
Tom Homan, who works for you on Fox News, recently said he wanted to create a database of people arrested during protests at ICE operations. What are you going to do with that database?
I don't know why he said that. We're not creating a database.
But he did say it. He works for you. He's not an agent, he's an employee.
He works for the president. He doesn't work for
He also works for you, ma'am.
No, he doesn't.
What do you want to do with that database?
We are not
This is a database of American citizens. Ma'am, I'm out of time, but what I'd like to do is send you a list of these questions that I've asked of you and have the opportunity to answer them.
Absolutely.
To be clear and to be on the record. Thank you. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here today.
Gentleman yields back. I would ask the unanimous consent to enter into the record a statement from Mr. Coleman, and then also a further document that he put together about Delilah's story. Without objection, those will be entered into the record. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
I thank the chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for joining us here today. One of the individuals that are sitting behind you approached me during the break and said something to the effect of, it is a gut punch to listen to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle characterize this situation the way they are, and that they are not remotely understanding the impact on American citizens who lost loved ones directly due to the specific policy choices of the previous administration and the policy choices my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would put in place right now if they could and if they were in power. Your predecessor was impeached. Your predecessor, Mayorkas, was impeached in part because he lied to me under oath in this room when he declared that there was operational control of the border, and he knew full well, and evidence indicated by his own admission, that there was not operational control of the border. My question for you, Madam Secretary, is, do you believe that many of the victims behind you, represented behind you, and the thousands of others of victims, fentanyl poisonings and otherwise, would have been alive today if the policies of the current administration had been in place and in force under the previous administration, under Biden and Mayorkas?
I do, sir. I believe that many of these victims, their situations were preventable. They didn't have to happen.
And this direct assault by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle on ICE, right? Is this not an environment created significantly by they themselves? When you have the Minnesota governor calling ICE enforcement the modern-day Gestapo, when you have the Minneapolis mayor telling ICE to get the F out of Minneapolis, when you have the Illinois governor claiming the United States is essentially becoming Nazi Germany, when you have House Minority Leader Jeffries calling for people to, quote, fight President Trump's enforcement agenda in the streets, end quote, does that not create the environment that they decry right now, undermining ICE and endangering citizens, the very citizens you have behind me who expect us to do our job and secure the border and secure our communities?
Yeah, I can't believe the way that they abuse these law enforcement officers who take an oath to go out and to protect this country and put their lives on the line, and many times live in these communities. They live in these communities with their families as well, doing these jobs, and recognize that their lives are put on the line too while they uphold the law that this country was built on.
Am I correct that on day one, President Trump signed Executive Order 14159, protecting American people against invasion, which invoked turn-away authority and refers asylum seekers to file for asylum in safe third countries like Mexico?
That is correct.
And did the president also sign a proclamation declaring a national emergency at the southern border, directing resources for the border wall?
That is correct.
Did the president also sign an executive order securing borders, ending mass parole, such as the illegal CHNV program that was abused by the previous administration?
That is correct.
So did that not change things immediately within a day, because the president came into office despite the protests by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that they needed to pass a ridiculous piece of legislation that would have codified 5,000 people a day? Mm-hmm. My question here is, now I want to turn it back on Congress. If we have a future Biden and Mayorkas.
At Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is
previous Congress in codifying changes to asylum, parole, and the abusive policies on catch and release that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will 100% abuse if they're put back in charge and endanger the American people. Does Congress not need to pass that bill, codify it, send it to the Senate, and force the Senate to make that law so that no future president can endanger the American people?
Yes, please do that, and I believe President Trump has asked you to do that.
One last question in my 45 seconds. I'm sure the Secretary is well aware of what just occurred in Austin, Texas, a place where my family lives. A shooter went into a bar and shot up a bunch of University of Texas kids and other citizens in Austin. That shooter was wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah," had a Quran in the back of his car, was wearing an Iranian flag t-shirt under the sweatshirt. That individual came to the United States in 2000, overstayed his visa, then applied to be able to have LPR status on the back of an alleged marriage, then 6 years later got citizenship under Obama, then tried to get citizenship for two women, two different named women, then was arrested for a hit and run in 2022. That individual is now alleged to potentially have some ties to terrorism or whatever. My question for you is, we've had so much mass immigration. Is not the president's policies on pausing certain countries' immigration a positive thing to stop that kind of stuff that we just had unfold in Austin? And a follow-up, should we not statutorily pause immigration to prevent those kinds of people from being in the communities of the United States?
Time has expired. The Secretary can respond.
Yes, we have a real threat from countries that are sending us people that we have not thoroughly vetted. So we need to pause so I can go back and re-vet all those individuals, make sure that they are here and that they aren't here to do us harm. The other thing that I would say is I would recommend you fund the Department of Homeland Security. It tells the whole world that the Democrat Party has their priorities screwed up because they won't fund their own homeland. They won't defend where they live, where their families live, where Americans live. They're choosing to risk the homeland for a political point. And so I would ask that you would vote to fund this department so we can have all of our assets on the field and make sure that we're defending and protecting this country.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Yield back.
Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, I come with concerns today that under your watch, the Department of Homeland Security has created a culture of chaos and fear in our American lives and endangered our constitutional liberties. I want to focus on a particular aspect of DHS's misconduct, which should concern every American, and that has to do with DHS's ever-expanding practice of labeling anyone who criticizes this administration or DHS actions as a criminal or a domestic terrorist. Time and again, we've seen this administration use the full power of the government to silence or intimidate people who disagree with it, and nowhere is that more true than with the Department of Homeland Security. When people have dared to speak out or push back, they've been assaulted, arrested, and now even killed. But what may have flown under the radar is that over the past year, DHS has been ramping up its use of a lesser-known tool known as administrative subpoenas or summons. Under your leadership, DHS has sent record numbers of these summons to tech companies like Google and Meta, Reddit, Apple, Microsoft, and Discord, demanding without legal authority or probable cause that these internet companies unmask social media accounts and hand over the identity of the account users so that DHS can spy on them. Many of these requests have targeted accounts speaking out against brutal immigration enforcement tactics and speaking up to help people understand their rights or support their neighbors. This is core, protected First Amendment speech. So I want to look at two recent examples of these DHS summons involving Americans in the Philadelphia suburbs, which I represent. In September, DHS targeted Facebook and Instagram accounts run by Montco Community Watch, a grassroots group that provides information about public ICE activities in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and shares civil rights and other resources to support its diverse community. DHS demanded that Meta turn over the identity of the administrator. In November, DHS demanded that Google share the address and other private information of a retired gentleman who hosts gatherings of friends to write postcards to elected officials after he sent an email to a DHS official identified in a Washington Post article asking that the agency consider decency in its efforts to deport an Afghan refugee who'd been an ally to American troops. Your agency asked Google to conceal its request to unmask him, and then Homeland Security agents showed up at this gentleman's home to interrogate him. These are just two examples, and in neither case was there any evidence of threats or criminal activity. Now, these two American citizens were able to secure lawyers and challenge these illegal demands in court. We've seen that DHS's bad faith requests don't hold up and have been forced to withdraw these demands because they don't withstand legal scrutiny. But not every American who's targeted has the time or the wherewithal to challenge the federal government.
This is you. While it doesn't look like much, this paints a picture of everything you've done on your cell phone, going back years. And cell phone carriers are continuously tracking, selling, and losing your info. At CAPE, we wanted to offer something different. As America's privacy-first mobile carrier, we provide premium and unlimited call, text, and data, but we only collect the bare minimum. And we rotate your network ID so you appear as a new person each day. Switch to CAPE and protect yourself with private cell service.
When you walk into a Burlington, you'll be amazed at how much we've changed. Brands, trends, savings. It's giving you main character energy. Because at Burlington, the deals aren't the only thing turning heads. Burlington deals, brands, wow. Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else? Burlington deals, brands, wow.
Vast majority of our investigations into financial fraud, into immigration fraud, into fraud when it regards to what is going on in Minneapolis.
So it could be a number of different agencies.
But beyond that,
within
we also have
DHS.
CISA, which is our cybersecurity agency.
You have defended DHS's actions repeatedly as using legal tools. But both the courts and DHS's own Inspector General have advised that DHS is misusing these tools in violation of the law and the Constitution. And that's exactly why no government agency is allowed to spy on Americans simply because they're sharing their opinions online. So I would request that you do provide that information to the committee.
We're not spying on individuals. If any
It's spying on
administration
people
was
when
spying
they're
on people,
exercising
it was
their
the Biden
First Amendment
administration.
rights. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
The lady yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Secretary Noem. I understand you have a lot on your plate and have an extraordinarily complex job to protecting the homeland in its entirety. And as I know you understand, my job is to represent my constituents. And I did need to bring up today a few specific ways in which right now my constituents are not being well served by your department, and see if we might be able to find a way forward. So there's a grant from one of the counties that I represent in Plumas County. It's a hazard mitigation grant worth $2.5 million called the Plumas County Ignition Resistant Construction and Dispensable Space Project. It includes home hardening and defensible space in a partnership between Plumas County and the Plumas County Fire Safe Council to mitigate no less than 64 homes in this rural fire-prone region to reduce and/or prevent physical damages to residential properties resulting from wildfires by conducting defensible space measures and residential retrofitting to be more fire resistant. I should note this is a county that has already been struck by one of the worst wildfires in state history. So this has been through all of the approvals, through Cal OES, through FEMA, and since June of last year, it's just been waiting for your signature, which I understand is a new requirement that anything over $100,000 needs the Secretary's approval. So our office reached out in December of last year because there was a time issue with December 31st being the date that matching state funds were going to expire. We didn't hear back, and that deadline passed. Luckily, we got an extension from the state. So then in January, after the extension was given until February 1st, our office requested a meeting between me and you. There was not a meeting granted. Luckily, the extension of the state funds was extended until March. So in February, the grant remained unsigned. Our office has heard nothing. We've gotten no updates from the Department of Homeland Security. We've been in constant contact every week. So do you have any idea why it is we can't get movement on this?
I don't, sir, and I'll find out for you, but I will tell you that it is not with my office. If this is a grant that has been held up, it's been held up at FEMA, and I will get to the bottom of it. What I also would say is that I do not have a requirement that I sign off on grants of $100,000. I do have a requirement on reviewing contracts because I found incredible fraud and inefficiencies and theft from American taxpayers in government contracting. But grants I do not. And that fund specifically would have came out of FEMA, and I will find out and get that answer for you.
I appreciate that. Would it be possible to set up a call within the next couple weeks if we haven't had any movement?
We can figure it out here within a half hour of this committee being over.
Perfect. Because this is, I agree with you. It's very important to be vigilant with these funds, but wildfires cost a lot of money when they happen.
I understand. So. And we've had 60 disaster declarations since President Trump's been in office, 41 of them major disasters. FEMA is dispersing funds on grants and relief and public assistance and individual assistance twice as fast than it ever has in its history. So overwhelmingly...
I appreciate that. I can't speak to other projects, and if that's true, that's great. But there's that project in my district. There's also a project with the Placer County Water Agency. They've been waiting since August of 2024 for a budget modification on a project that's necessary to keep water flowing from the pumps there during public safety power shutoffs associated with wildfires. We've been waiting to hear since August of 2024. Is that something you might be able to look into for us as well?
I'll look into, and the one thing that I think is good for everyone to be aware is that in order for FEMA to disperse funds at times, there has to be invoices turned in, costs proven out in order for that matching dollar and that grant to be awarded. There we have found incredible fraud in some of these grants that were run by the Biden administration where they were diverted to DEI projects or to projects that had nothing to do with why that grant was created, and we're getting it back on mission.
I'll
look at those too, and I will ensure that we look at them and make the right decision as to getting those paid out if they are due and if they fit the program and if they aren't fraudulent.
I appreciate that, and they're not. I can assure you. And we got one more, which is in El Dorado County. This is a $25 million project. Funding has been approved. There's matching state funds. Covers 525 homes for high wildfire risk. They've been waiting on the NEPA approval since January of 2025. Another very important project for fire mitigation in my area. So I just wanted to bring these to your attention. I've been very critical of Governor Newsom and the state leaders in California for not taking the issue of fire mitigation seriously, not doing what they should. So I do feel like I need to advocate with equal force for making sure that we're doing everything we can at the federal level to keep our citizens safe, and I appreciate it.
I think what happened there was tragic and a failure of local leaders to protect people and to help them. We will do all that we can, and President Trump is committed to. But yes, the failure by Governor Newsom and also by Mayor Bass was incredible.
I agree with you there 100%. Thank you, Madam Secretary. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The unanimous consent request from the gentleman from Texas.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to insert the record an article from the Hill Country Community Journal, Kerrville's hometown paper, outlining, and is titled, Kristi Noem joins governor in support of Kerr community, tours areas of destruction. from last summer. I was personally there.
Without objection.
Secondly, I'd like to insert into the record an article titled "Trump Recounts Daring Texas Flood Rescue Reunites Camper with Coast Guard Swimmer at State of the Union," for the record, and I thank the Secretary.
Without objection. The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being here. I want to discuss in greater detail the expansion of advertising in your department under your tenure, and I believe you testified regarding some of these matters yesterday in front of the United States Senate. In particular, I want to discuss the department's $220 million ad campaign. This is the ad campaign that featured you at Mount Rushmore. You're familiar with this ad campaign, correct?
I am familiar with it. It was an ad
So
campaign that was
I'm going to ask you some
placed
questions about
to-
it, Madam Secretary. So,
Okay.
as I understand it, this is a $220 million ad campaign. It's split between two contractors. One of those contractors got $143 million. That contractor is called Safe America Media, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That company is affiliated with a former political director of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Now, yesterday you testified, I think I'm quoting you right, you said, quote, or in reference to this contract, that, quote, it went out to a competitive bid. Do you stand by that statement?
It was a no-bid contract where two vendors were
It was a no-bid
chosen.
contract.
If it would have been a no-bid contract, if I'm using that correctly, it goes out to two different vendors.
Correct. So it was
There
not a
many
competitive.
media-
Let me try to explain
agency.
what the discrepancy, because a competitive bid is very different than a no competitive bid, and I'll just explain why. We know that your testimony yesterday, when you said, again, I'll quote, it went out to a competitive bid, is untrue. The reason we know it's untrue is because under federal law, your agency is required, whenever the agency decides to skip competitive bidding, to file a notice with the public explaining why. And in this case,
Right.
your agency filed a notice.
Right.
You're aware of that,
Right.
right? Justification and approval for other than full and open competition. Your agency made a decision not to proceed with competitive bidding. $143 million.
Many
right?
vendors got the chance to.
That's inaccurate, Madam Secretary. I'll read from the notice from your agency. Given the immediate action to significantly reduce illegal immigration and border crossings, DHS identified 4 companies. 4 of the hundreds of thousands of companies in the United States. You identified 4. One of those is this Safe America Media company. Where is Safe America Media headquartered?
I don't know.
I don't know either, Madam Secretary. We can't find it. We can't find a website. We did find an address that's registered for this company. Do you know where that address is?
Is there a problem with this contract?
I'll
Because
tell you
was
about
done
it.
according to
Madam
law.
Secretary,
It was done by career
address is
officials.
registered to a political
It was
operative.
dollars that were spent
Madam Secretary, the
to
company,
inform
and then I'll
people
give you an
that the
opportunity to
laws-
respond.
Look.
The company is registered to a political operative in Virginia. Do you know, just by way of example, whether this company that received $143 million in taxpayer dollars, has it ever done work for the government before?
I don't know. I can't.
The answer is it has not. And do you know why we know that? Because it was incorporated 8 days before this contract went out. You want the American people to believe that this is all above board?
Yes,
that $143 million of taxpayer money just happened to go to this one company that doesn't have a headquarters, doesn't have a website, has never done work for the federal government before, and is registered, apparently, or attached to a residence from a political operative. And of course, one of the subcontractors of that contract, as you know, is a political firm that's tied to you back when you were governor of South Dakota. The reason why I ask these questions is that this is taxpayer money. And I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but Senator Tillis noted yesterday the way in which your agency is blocking the Inspector General from 11 different investigations that it is trying to conduct. I don't know if this happens to be one of them. I certainly hope it is, because eventually the facts will become public in this regard. And there are serious laws implicated, conflict of interest laws, federal procurement laws, that I believe
All
merit...
followed. All done correctly.
Was it all done correctly?
14 billion impressions from that marketing campaign.
Sure.
It was money spent in this country and in 8 different countries that illegal migration was coming from.
Madam Secretary,
overwhelmingly effective.
We all understand the argument that you've made. The argument that you've made that somehow this ad campaign on Fox News of you at Mount Rushmore has led to millions of people self-deporting. You're using millions of dollars of taxpayer money in this way. It is fraud. And ultimately, I think there's going to be accountability. And I yield back, though.
Can I speak to the IG?
Yes, you can. Quick.
The IG has been told repeatedly, in writing, verbally, on the phone, that he can have access to anything at the Department of Homeland Security. He can. He doesn't need my permission to come and brief members of Congress on the Hill. He just needs to provide a scoping memo, which is what every single IG gets from every single department and agency. All intelligence agencies require a scoping memo. He just hasn't done that. He wants unfettered access to every single thing in the department, and that's not the process, and that's not any other IG has demanded that.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Secretary Noem. Thank you for being with us today. I would like to take just a moment to talk about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS. As I understand it, the mission of CISA is to lead the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to our cyber and physical infrastructure. And CISA works to protect energy grids, pipelines, hospitals, financial networks, water systems, and all of the other sectors of critical infrastructure in the U.S. Is it a correct characterization that CISA itself plays a critical role in monitoring threats against the cyber and physical infrastructure of our country and working to prevent such attacks against our homeland?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, CISA has had billions of interactions stopping threats online from attacking not just our country for a national security reason, but also our critical infrastructure, our electrical grids, our telecoms, our water systems. We work with state and local offices and agents and governments every single day to help them secure their systems as well, recognizing they feed into the protection of the federal government as well.
Isn't it also true that if a hostile nation or proxy launched a coordinated cyber attack against our domestic critical infrastructure systems, that CISA would play a lead role in coordinating the federal response to that attack?
That is correct. CISA is charged with identifying vulnerabilities that we have in our systems, and then also recommending mitigation measures that people can take to harden their systems. So we hunt down the bad actors and then harden systems to prevent those cyber attacks.
And particularly right now, given the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, do you expect that Iran and its cyber proxies may actually attempt retaliatory cyber actions against the United States and its infrastructure?
Yes, and they do. They do on a regular basis.
With that backdrop in mind, is part of CISA's workforce furloughed right now?
Yes, they are. About 2/3 of that agency is not in the office because the Democrat Party has chosen not to fund the Department of Homeland Security.
So there are components of the Department of Homeland Security and CISA specifically, as we've been discussing, that are dedicated to protecting the critical infrastructure of our country. A substantial portion of those staff right now are furloughed because Democrats have refused to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Is that right?
That is correct.
Secretary Noem, does CISA also have a role in protecting our nation's elections infrastructure?
Yes, the agency and the department is charged with protecting critical infrastructure, and elections are deemed critical infrastructure under the statute and law.
You touched on something a moment ago that is also particularly important as it relates to elections, and that is CISA's work to partner with state and local officials to make sure that everyone understands the threat landscape, preventive strategies, threat mitigation. Share with us a little bit more about CISA's work, particularly with state and local election officials, to make sure that our elections are secure.
Well, CISA works with other intelligence agencies to identify where there may be vulnerabilities in the election system, what kind of technology or components are easily susceptible to hacking, and then reporting that to states who are charged with running elections, and letting them know where those vulnerabilities are. We can give them mitigation measures that can be taken to help protect those systems, and what else they could do as far as recommendations on after elections doing auditing. as well, to ensure that if machines are used or if they are hooked online or had access to individuals who could be involved in hacking or corruption, that they have the ability to audit their election afterwards to ensure that it was accurate and that American citizens had their ballots counted.
Are these efforts by CISA also being negatively affected due to the shutdown of funding to your department at this time?
Yes, everything at the department's being affected right now. We have over 100,000 employees who are furloughed. We've got even law enforcement officers, security officers. TSA is not funded. Those individuals are showing up every day and working without any pay to keep our national security at the front and center for people that are traveling by planes across this country, and they continue to do that. And it is incredibly impactful on our administrative processes, on our contracting offices, on our ability to work across departments to share information. My hope is that today you are all successful in passing a funding bill for this department so that we have all of our players on the field to defend the country.
And in your opinion, Secretary Noem, does the Democrats' failure thus far to agree to fund the Department of Homeland Security result in a risk to our national security?
Well, we are doing everything that we can to defend the country and to protect the country. We'll continue to do that. They are making our job very difficult to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The unanimous consent from Gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I'd seek unanimous consent to introduce an article from the Washington Post dated February 3rd, 2026. Homeland Security is targeting Americans with this secretive legal weapon.
Without objection.
Also, an article from the New York Times, February 13th, 2026. Homeland Security wants social media sites to expose anti-ICE accounts.
Without objection.
And finally, a report from November 16, 2017, the Inspector General of Department of Homeland Security. Management alerts CBP's use of examination and summons authority under 19 U.S.C. Section 1509.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Ranking members recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I seek unanimous consent to enter the record a ProPublica article, November 14, 2025, titled "Firm Tied to Kristi Noem Secretly Got Money from $220 Million DHS Ad Contracts."
Without objection. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Noem, you claim that you are going after the worst of the worst. If you were doing that, I would really be cheering you on, but this simply isn't the case. That's false. Rodney Taylor, who is incarcerated at Stewart Detention Center in Georgia, he's a prime example. He's 47 years old and works as a barber. When he was 2, he was brought to this country legally on a medical visa to address his extensive disabilities. He needed a medical care for a deformed left foot, a missing right foot, and 3 fingers missing on his right hand. Rodney has had 16 different operations and has been a double amputee since the age of 10 years old. Rodney received a criminal conviction when he was 17, nearly 30 years ago. However, Rodney was pardoned by the state of Georgia by Republican Governor Sonny Perdue. And since then, Rodney has lived a law-abiding life and has a green card application that's now pending. And no administration, including the first Trump administration, has sought to remove Rodney from this country. In January 2025, he entered ICE detention, and his health has deteriorated quickly since then. Rodney has experienced several health challenges, including bone spurs in his back causing severe pain. Rodney sought medical care multiple times while detained, but was rejected. He is unable to use a wheelchair because his right hand only has 1 full finger, making it impossible for him to push it. He's unable to walk on his prosthetic legs because he's lost 20 pounds and they simply don't fit him anymore. On top of this, he's at the mercy of other detainees just to get food, since he can't get himself to and from the cafeteria. Rodney's disabilities make it nearly impossible for him to shower. He went 6 days without showering because the detention center lacked the appropriate medical equipment. When he finally got a shower stool, he found moldy showers covered in feces and bodily fluids just yesterday. He was threatened with disciplinary action if he tries to use that shower stool. Rodney must crawl through that muck and squalor of feces and bodily fluids to enter and exit the shower. This is despicable. It's inhumane torture that no person should have to endure. And today, we have Rodney's wife, Mildred Donis Taylor, and her daughters, please stand, who are United States citizens. Secretary Noem, can you honestly tell Rodney's wife and family and the American people that are watching that these cruel and unusual conditions are acceptable under your watch?
I'm not familiar with this case, and I will certainly look into it and ensure that this center where Rodney is at is held to the same standards as all our federal detention standards, which are the highest in the nation, overwhelmingly in comparison to other detaining facilities at the local or state level. The other thing that I would say,
I'm reclaiming my time,
is that at any point, Rodney
did you just hear me? What I
has an
described?
opportunity
Did
to leave
you
that
just hear
detention
what I
center.
described? He has to crawl through mold and feces and bodily fluids just to take a shower. He can't even get medical care.
Every
This
one
is
of our
absolute
detainees,
lunacy, and you know it.
every one of our
Member
detainees
Jayapal,
gets medical care
reclaiming
within
my
12
time,
hours of being
reclaiming my time. Ranking Member Jayapal, myself, and 20 of my colleagues, we wrote to you about Rodney's treatment more than 2 weeks ago. Yes or no, have you actually read the letter?
No, I have not heard of this case, so
Okay,
I
let
will
me
see
tell
what
you,
that
I
letter
have the
is
letter
about.
right here. And would you like to read it? Because I'm more than happy to bring a staff
that'd be
member
great.
down to it.
That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you, I appreciate that.
I will look into the
So
case.
then, if you're going to look into the case, can you tell us how long it'll be before we actually get a response from you? Maybe 2 weeks?
No, I'll get you a response.
Because
get the information.
we deserve an answer, and Rodney's family definitely deserves an answer, because this is inhumane treatment. And this leads me to believe that there are so many other detainees that are being treated exactly the same way, and this is despicable. Secretary, will you promise his wife and this committee and the American people that you will review, you've said that, but I want you to make a formal promise that you will review Rodney's case and provide a thorough response on whether it's in the public interest to keep him in these conditions, and we'd like to know within the next 2 weeks. Are you telling me within the next 2 weeks?
Absolutely. I will review this case and
Good.
get a response back
Good.
to you
I will be
and to
following up
Rodney's
with
family.
you as much as it possibly takes.
I do want you to
Rodney
know, Mr.
is
Chairman,
not the
if I may
worst
say,
of the worst. I reclaim my time. Rodney's not the worst of the worst. This is truly a miscarriage of justice, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Secretary Noem, I want to go a little bit different route here on some issues that are very important to Wyoming. There's a very important enforcement issue related to my constituents in Wyoming. Sugar beet farmers are important for Wyoming's economy and the economies of so many other states. Unfortunately, foreign entities are circumventing our laws to bring in sugar and displace these hardworking farmers. I know that there is a Section 1516 petition in front of the CBP right now challenging these imports. And would you please commit to us today to quickly addressing this petition to ensure that our laws and trade agreements are being enforced?
I will look at that.
Thank you. Under the leadership of the House Judiciary Committee, this Congress is proposing decisive action to punish sanctuary cities and states for their illegal actions. Because the reality is that these so-called sanctuary jurisdictions should not be receiving the benefits of federal policies and programs while they are actively, intentionally, and publicly violating federal law. The Department of Commerce estimates that over 1.1 million foreign college students contribute over $50 billion annually to the communities where they attend school. The states receiving the majority of this benefit from the federal student visa program are sanctuary states such as California, New York, Massachusetts, and Illinois. It is ridiculous for these sanctuary jurisdictions to profit from the legal immigration system while aiding illegal immigration. Secretary Noem, understanding that the student visa program is jointly run by DHS along with the State Department, have you considered applying scrutiny over student visas for students seeking to attend schools located within sanctuary jurisdictions?
Yes, we are, and we're using the CVIS program to do a lot of that work and partnership with the Department of State. I would say that the Department of Education has been very helpful as well in working with these universities and colleges to ensure that they recognize the benefits of being a student here in this country, being here on a visa, that it is a privilege, that is afforded to those individuals, and that the cities in which they're located in should be working with federal law enforcement officers and public safety officials to ensure a safe environment for everyone.
Well, I have introduced legislation. It's called the No Student Visas for Sanctuary Cities Act that would cut off student visas for schools located within sanctuary jurisdictions until they comply with federal immigration law and they certify that compliance. I would appreciate the opportunity to work with you to implement this much-needed check on these rogue cities and states. Would you commit to working with me on that?
I'll work with you on that.
Wonderful. One of the most dangerous consequences of the Biden-Harris border crisis is the rate and ease by which illegal aliens without basic qualifications like English language proficiency have obtained commercial driver's licenses or CDLs. President Trump's April 2025 executive order restored English language proficiency enforcement on our highways and rightfully brought heightened scrutiny to this issue. For example, over 50% of New York's non-domiciled CDLs were issued illegally to foreign drivers, while California has admitted to doing the same for approximately 17,000 non-domiciled CDLs. Unfortunately, these actions have tragically cost countless American lives, with many others being critically injured, including that beautiful young woman who just left the room. Secretary Noem, can you speak to how your department has partnered with the Department of Transportation and state and local law enforcement to help catch illegal alien truck drivers?
Yeah, it's been a great partnership to help get this public safety threat off the roads. The Department of Transportation has jurisdiction over the actual CDLs and those driving schools, which some of them they've found and uncovered are fraudulent. They don't train anybody. They just hand out for a fee a driver's license to someone that they go and get on the road. And not only are they putting people in danger, but they're also undercutting our American workers. And truck drivers have lost their jobs because they can't work for as cheap as these illegal aliens do. And I would say, and Delilah's father's one of them.
That's right.
Said he can't pay his bills at 40 cents a mile, but these illegals can because they're on public assistance when they come, because they've been facilitated in, they don't pay taxes, and then they can undercut American workers for jobs. What else I would say is that we work with our local and state law enforcement where we can to do interdictions on our roads, to get as many of them off the road as soon as possible. I know the state of Indiana lost 6 people in just a very short period of time from these drivers killing innocent Americans and civilians.
I'll just give you some stats from the state of Wyoming, the least populated state in the nation. Earlier this year, the Laramie County Sheriff's Office led a 3-day operation with support from ICE that resulted in 82 commercial trucks being stopped, 32 illegal immigrants arrested, and 51 tickets being written. How important are these types of federal-state partnerships to your operations when it comes to removing these dangerous actors from our roadways?
Oh, they're very incredible because the state and local law enforcement know how to make these operations effective. They know where we should be, where these truck drivers are, how we should do enforcement, and we partner with them in a task force model to do immigration enforcement.
Thank you for that, and I yield back.
The lady yields back. Unanimous consent from the lady from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a unanimous consent request since Secretary Noem claims not to be familiar enough with this case. From March 2025, a CNN article covering Rodney's story. From June 2025, a Fox article titled Protests as ICE Detains Disabled Atlanta Barber Despite State Pardon, covering Rodney's story. An article from September 2025 titled Detained by ICE, Gwinnett Barber with Amputated Legs Petitions for Release. And lastly, I'd like to also submit the letter that Ranking Member Jayapal, myself, and all of our colleagues sent to Secretary Noem in February.
Without objection, the gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, Hurricane Helene tore through western North Carolina almost a year and a half ago, killing more than 100 people and causing more than $60 billion of damage. 2 months later, Congress passed a bipartisan disaster package, which included $29 billion for FEMA Disaster Relief Fund, covering several states. And yet, despite this, countless North Carolinians have spent 2 winters paying mortgages and taxes on homes that are unlivable and may not even exist anymore. They have been waiting in limbo for your department to sign off on recovery funding. And I know Representative Kiley raised similar issues in his state. North Carolina's counties have had to step up to fill in the gap, spending their limited taxpayer funds on recovery and repair, with the expectation that they would swiftly be reimbursed by the federal government. And yet, many of these counties have not been reimbursed until this week, but we'll get to that. Meaning that they have had to use all their money and not have money for their essential services, public schools, EMS, other public services, health care, and everything else. And I have met with some of the county executives who have struggled with their budgets while recovering from Helene. These delays in paying out this desperately needed recovery funds are simply unacceptable. And you heard that from my Republican senator, Senator Tillis, yesterday. Your new policy, and it is a new policy, requiring your personal sign-off on expenditures over $100,000 has contributed to many of these delays, creating a bottleneck, blocking reimbursement for hundreds of millions of dollars of disaster funding that stand directly between North Carolinians and that relief. In fact, Senator Tillis, as I'm sure you remember, lambasted you and the failure of your department in dispersing these funds. And then magically, about $80 million got released today, for which we're thankful. But we shouldn't have to have a U.S. senator or a representative or another representative come to you directly to get you to do your job. But we also know that you had time to sign off on the purchase of 2 luxury private Gulfstream jets for your personal travel, $170 million. And we've heard about the new Boeing 737 that you're in the process of outfitting. Evidently, you were satisfied that there was no fraud, waste, and abuse involved in the jets. But meanwhile, could you tell me whether you found any fraud, waste, or abuse in these North Carolina expenditures?
You know, Congresswoman, what I would tell you is that Joe Biden failed North Carolina.
Listen to me. I asked you a direct question. Joe Biden provided greater relief. Joe Biden showed up.
No, he
Joe
didn't.
Biden didn't lie about what was going on the ground. I don't even want to get into what Donald Trump did during the campaign, misinformation that was put out there. And you cannot find the time until my senator berates you in public to approve this money. Individual members of Congress should not have to come to you. Our counties, our struggling counties in the western part of the state, are some of the most rural counties. They are poor counties. They do not have the money to front for you.
In the months that we have been here, we have deployed billions of dollars, billions more than what the Biden
I am reclaiming my time. You have been too slow. I have heard this from Republican county commissioners. I have heard this from administrators. I have been in the western part of the state. I know exactly what's going on, and you have turned a blind eye while you're busy trying to deport American citizens. And now I want to get back, reclaiming my time, to the second point that Senator Tillis made. You have not responded to him and the people of North Carolina about why you have picked up U.S. citizens. You've heard that from Representative Correa. Why you have intimidated people who are here lawfully, and why you are threatening the economy of one of the most prosperous states in this country by practicing malpractice. You should resign or be impeached. I yield back.
Chairman, may I answer that question? The state of North Carolina has received billions more in Helene relief disaster assistance than President Biden did. In fact, every single
because we appropriated the money.
Every project has been
yielded back.
Obligated. It's been paid out. The state manages the response, and those counties get their funding from the state, which has been allocated the FEMA dollars.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being here. The hypocrisy of my colleagues on the other side when they talk about appropriating money and yet refuse to appropriate money for your department. The gentlelady from North Carolina talks about doing your job. Would it help you do your job to actually have an appropriations bill passed by this House?
Well, yes, and I would remind them that the Disaster Relief Fund is overcommitted right now. That there are $4 billion there that is committed due to litigation. Another $3 billion we keep for major disasters are oncoming. We've had over 12 states impacted by major disasters that haven't received a dollar yet in the last month. And that disaster relief fund is overcommitted and needs to be refilled through that appropriations bill for us to continue to receive and help states like we have in North Carolina.
So relief for the people of Western North Carolina is being held up by
theirs
the
have been
failure
paid.
of...
Theirs have been paid. We have deployed billions of dollars. I have every month released hundreds of millions of dollars to North Carolina in projects where they've come in and improved the project, and it's at that stage to where it can be obligated to their state.
Is preparedness...
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
No, I will not yield. Is preparedness for future disasters in North Carolina and other states being held up by Democrats who refuse to vote for appropriations bills that would fund your
Right now,
department?
the department, because of the lack of funding, has to prioritize actions that are life and limb and crisis situations. We aren't able to do training. We aren't able to go out and do the daily business work of contracting and grants. And
Let me quote some more hypocritical Democrats who are refusing to vote for appropriations measures to fund Homeland Security, but are saying things about our efforts in Iran. Congressman Subramaniam says we need to get serious right now protecting Americans in the Middle East. Does it protect Americans here in Virginia to not fund the Department of Homeland Security, or does it endanger their safety?
It endangers this country when we don't fully fund the Department of Homeland Security. And I will tell you that it endangers us because the whole world knows that this Congress is not funding
Correct.
the Homeland
Let me
Security
quote another
Department
Virginian,
right now.
Don
I'm telling
Beyer.
those who hate us the most overseas know right now this department does not have money to defend us.
Let me quote Congressman Don Beyer, who says that there's a shocking failure of leadership that needlessly puts American lives in danger to be active in Iran right now. What kind of danger does it put American citizens in right now to fail to fund the Department of Homeland Security?
Every day this country faces threats, and the department sees them, stops them. When you hear no bad news, that's a good day for us. That means that we've done our work and we've stopped threats, and millions of those happen every single year that our agencies are working on. When we don't have the funding to have every single person on their job and on task, that makes us vulnerable.
And again, the hypocrisy blows my mind when Senator Mark Warner, co-chair of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, says that the president is putting American lives at risk in Iran. What kind of risks is Senator Warner putting Americans in when he fails to vote for a Department of Homeland Security funding bill?
Well, and Iran has said that they will retaliate. And we know how they have threatened us, how they've threatened us on our homeland, and they've threatened our leading officials as well. So those threats are very real and exist, and we are on a tempo that is higher than usual.
And let me talk about my own governor, Governor Spanberger. Just a few weeks ago, an alleged MS-13 gang member, Christian Medrano Umanzor, was arrested in Strasbourg. Thanks to the cooperation of local law enforcement with ICE, officers were able to confirm that he was wanted on a detainer. He's now in custody of ICE on a charge of illegal reentry. But late last month, Fairfax County Police Department charged an illegal alien, Abdul Jalla, with fatally stabbing Stephanie Minter at a local bus stop. He was arrested over 30 times for various crimes, including rape, malicious wounding, assault, and larceny. But our governor now says that she demands a judicial warrant before she will cooperate with ICE on this. That is remarkable to me that she would be putting Virginians' lives at risk and risk releasing this man back into the Fairfax County community. Talk about how a judicial warrant is different from an administrative warrant and what that would do to your ability and the ability of your department to enforce our immigration laws, to remove dangerous illegal aliens, and to protect the citizens of Virginia.
Yeah, administrative warrants are the legal tool that we have been given by this body to go out and do immigration enforcement. And we've, in over 400,000 different instances, used those effectively and very rarely used them to ever go into somebody's home. But in that situation in Virginia, the people that live there should be alarmed that they don't have a governor that can make a common sense decision like that, that we would not want someone like that on the streets impacting the safety of the citizens of Virginia. You've had a dramatic downgrade in governors recently. I I feel terrible for the people that live there. I'm sure that by the next election, they will choose better.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, a unanimous consent request.
The gentleman is recognized.
Enter into the record a tweet from the Department of Homeland Security responding to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler's claims earlier.
Yep, without objection. Gentlelady from North Carolina for unanimous consent.
Yes, I have three, Mr. Chairman. I ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record a Climate Power article titled Kristi Noem Gutted Disaster Response.
Objection.
And then a unanimous consent request to enter into the record a Guardian article titled A Bar, Kitchen, Flat Screen TVs, $70 million DHS is eyeing for deportations.
Objection.
And then the last one, a press release by my colleagues on the Appropriations Committee. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem spends $200 million taxpayer dollar money for a pair of Gulfstream private jets.
Without objection. Gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Noem, I want to start with your testimony in front of Congress last year. You said, quote, "I think it's shameful to see the defense of individuals who break our laws. We are a nation of laws. If we are not a nation of laws, we are no nation at all." Do you stand by that?
I do.
We are a nation of laws. And obviously, in a nation of laws, agencies have to comply with lawful court orders. Secretary Noem, since you took over the department, how many times has DHS violated a court order?
We always comply with federal court orders. I believe the instances that you're talking about are times when a judge has issued an order and notification came to us in a period of time that was a large enough gap to not meet the deadline. So we may have missed
Secretary
the deadline.
Noem, if I could,
never violated.
if I could,
a court
Secretary
order.
Noem,
We've always
I have the
followed
numbers
federal
handy
court
right
order.
here because last week a federal judge appointed by George W. Bush identified 210 times when your agency violated court orders. And one judge has said about ICE has likely violated more court orders in January of 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. Now, Secretary Noem, you have said repeatedly that your department is, quote, following all court orders. But just because you keep saying it does not make it true. And Americans aren't stupid, and they can see what is happening, and judges are also sounding the alarm. In a case where you attempted to deport Ramesa Öztürk because of her First Amendment protected rights, First Amendment protected speech, the judge said that you and Secretary Rubio had engaged in an unconstitutional conspiracy and that you both failed in your duties to protect the Constitution. And frankly, those words are absolutely shocking. And the reality is that you refuse to acknowledge, and you're doing it here today, you refuse to acknowledge that your agency has broken the law. Since you have been